Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back for another TOS video. So I'm back with another card review, this time with the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood collab. Right, so let's take a look at this jackpot card right here. So it's not sure whether it is the 1% card or is it the 4.5 jackpot, right? So anyway, this is Roy Mustang right here, one of the jackpot cards, and I'm gonna go through his whole card thoroughly as well as his combination partner as well. Right, so let's take a look at Roy Mustang here. Leader skill, fire attack times 6. So this is pretty much like the standard multiplier right now, right? Even at black gold level at Ingzhen is times 6 as well. Right, so human HP, attack and recovery times 1.3. So if you were to have a full fire human team, that would be most ideal, right? In terms of all the HP, attack, recovery boost as well. Right, so point number 3, deal 5 times fire damage to all enemies each time when runestones are exploded by the team. So the rune explosion will be explained later. So what this means is this team here can actually passively demolish all those invisible shield from enemies, right? So you don't really need a snipe card. So this explosion will kind of deal with it somehow. Right, so point number 4, by dissolving fire runes, fire attack times 2.2 additionally. So that's an additional boost on top of the fire attack times 6 at point number 1. Right, so last but not least, by dissolving water runes in the first batch, attack of Roy Mustang minus 80%. Right, so this is pretty much based on the anime itself, right? So I heard Roy Mustang is like afraid of water and stuff like that because I don't watch the anime. I'm not very familiar with it. Right, but anyways, judging from all this leader skill, you can pretty much see the advantage and the weakness of Roy Mustang right away. Right, so point number 3 pretty much is an advantage. You can deal with invisible shield with no problem at all. Right, and point number 4, for you to have additional boost right there. But in turn, the disadvantage is if you have any sort of anti-fire initial dissolve and all these things, you pretty much have to stack your runes, right? So by stacking doesn't mean it's just a bit of a hassle, but you can still kind of bypass it, right? The most annoying enemy skill that is gonna get you is the final point, right? By dissolving water rune in the first batch, attack of Roy Mustang minus 80%. So if you were to encounter any enemy with have to dissolve all the water runes in the first batch to deal damage and stuff like that, the damage of Roy Mustang is going to be pretty low. Alright, so you have to take note of that. Okay, so other than that, I think more or less is okay. So for the final point, attack of Roy Mustang minus 80%, I don't really see it as a disadvantage. Right, so you can take a look at the attack multiplier is actually pretty high. Right, so you can actually dissolve water runes on purpose to kind of lower the damage of the entire team so that you can kind of store your CD at battle 1, battle 2, whenever you can actually store your cooldown from. Alright, so with this, we're going to move on to the active skill. Alright, so Roy Mustang, active skill is at CD 6, so not too bad. Number 1, explode the 2 bottom rows 3 times to generate non-water runes and deal fire damage to all enemies. So again, another snipe damage there. Right, so I don't really need to explain that anymore. So basically, explode the bottom 2 runes 3 times is pretty much the entire board. Alright, so it's just that it's doing it in 3 separate intervals. Right, but nonetheless, it's still pretty much a full board clear at CD6, which is pretty decent. Alright, and for 2 rounds, fire attack times 1.8, so that's going to be times another 1.8 on top of the leader skill. Right, so point number 3, drop rate of water transferred to fire. So you will have that juicy damage for 2 rounds. Right, so overall this is pretty much like a booster, nothing much. Right, so you can pretty much use Roy as a kind of like a board clear plus attack boost kind of active skill. Alright, so continuing with Roy Mustang's team skill. Right, so fire also possesses 50% effect of hard runes, so I can see that this team will not have any problems in terms of recovery. Right, we can see this effect in Pompeii as well. You can see that the recovery is pretty decent for the entire team. Alright, so number 2, drop rate of fire runes increased to 25%. I believe this applies to like Natsu from Fairy Tail as well. Right, so overall you have a higher chance of dropping fire runes instead of other runes. And number 3, by dissolving all fire in the first batch, explode all water runes upon completion of moving and dissolving runestones until there are no more water runes. Alright, so this is pretty much assisting you to clear off water runes on the board, so as to have no water runes on the board for the next turn, so you won't get that initial water runes dissolve to have that minus 80% damage. Right, so I see this as a pros and cons kind of thing. So if you were to run into like a water, fire, earth shield or a quintet shield, you pretty much need water runes, right? So it really depends on the stage as well. So if you were to have a quintet shield in the next battle, then you wouldn't want to dissolve all fire runes in the first batch, right? So it doesn't explode all water runes. Okay, so this is something for you to consider, right? So this Roy Mustang here is actually quite a interesting playstyle, right? But I can foresee that it's not gonna be super weak, right? I can expect a lot from this card when it's released. Okay, let's move on. Next, point number 4, when boss skill burning is in play, which is like burning trail, crossfire, burning and stuff like that. Leader attack times 3, so you actually increase Roy's damage and reduce the damage by burning to 1, right? So usually burning will actually reduce your HP by 500 HP or worse come to worse by 20% HP, right? So all this will be reduced to 1 HP every time you cross the fire or the burning trail, right? So that's good. So reduce damage to 1 is pretty much negligible. They might as well just not put it in the first place, right? But anyways, attack basic value of Mustang plus 1.5k, right? So this is actually pretty massive. I think it will reach to a demon race kind of attack stats already, so that's a plus, right? And then of course, last but not least, cooldown of Roy and Riza Hawkeye, which is his fusion partner, -2 after entering a stage, so that pretty much helps in getting that fusion up as fast as possible, right? So provided there is no neutralize reset at the start of the stage. Right, so moving on, we're going to talk a bit about Riza Hawkeye. So she will be the fusion partner of Roy. So again, CD6, so it's a pretty fast card. So if you have -2 CD in 4 turns, you can pretty much do a fusion already. Right, so explode non-fire twice to generate non-water. So this is actually assisting Roy's in terms of his leader skill playstyle. Right, so for 1 round, launch 6 extra attack as much as 30% of his attack. So I believe this is pretty much like an extra, just a small little damage boost, right? Because Riza being a small jackpot card, I think the stats is going to be quite mediocre, and 6 fire attack as much as 30% is not going to do much. But this active skill is going to get a huge boost once you do the fusion, right? So we're going to talk about that a little later. Alright, so I'm going to talk about the combination skill first before we touch on to the fusion form of Roy and Riza. So when you do the combination, what's gonna happen is you're gonna explode all runestones to generate non-water runes. Right, so this is pretty much this playstyle revolves a lot around bot clear. Right, like you can see Roy active skill is bot clear, and then Riza is pretty much a mini bot clear as well. And then upon combination, you have explode all runestones, which is another bot clear. Alright, so to generate non-water runestones, so that's good. For 1 round, all runestones possess effect of fire, which is pretty much a good additional damage boost there. And also after combination, launch an extra fire attack as much as 50% of his attack every round. So obviously because it's a 2 card, right? So launch an extra fire attack is very normal, right? So it's not actually 3 hits but 2 hits, which is pretty normal. And then we come to Roy and Riza's leader skill, where this is the fusion form. You can see that there is an extra damage base boost from ×6 to ×6.5, right? For first point, 6.5 fire attack. And then you can see that there is a boost in human stats as well, from 1.3, if I recall correctly, to 1.4. Alright, so number 3, deal more fire damage to all enemies every time runestones are exploded. So that's good. And then by dissolving fire runes, you can see that the fire attack times 2.8 additionally, so there's a boost there as well. And then same thing, by dissolving water runes in the first batch, -80%, so that is pretty much negligible by now. And you should be always dissolving first batch, all the fire runes in the first batch, right, to ensure that there is no water runes in the next round, right? So that's pretty much how you play Roy. Right, so Roy and Riza's active skill, so it's pretty much like the upgraded version of Roy and Riza's active skill individually. Right, so here we have Roy's updated EX version of his active skill, which is pretty much the very similar. So explode the two bottom rows 3 times to generate non-water enchanted runestone. So that's pretty much the same. And then deal fire damage to all enemies. That's pretty much the same. And then for 2 rounds, this is where it becomes different, right? So fire attack times 2, there's a boost increase right there. And then drop rate of water runes will be transferred to that of fire. And all fire runes drop will be enchanted fire. So pretty much kind of like a Natsu passive there. Right, so that's going to increase Roy and Riza's damage massively. Right, so I can't wait to actually try this out. Right, seems a pretty legit team. Right, but sometimes card review can go very wrong. Sometimes a strong card can seem very weak, and a weak card can seem very strong. Right, so we have to wait for the full release of this card. Alright, next, let's take a look at the second active skill, which belongs to Riza. Right, so Hawkeye EX, CD6 as well. So explode non-fire runes 3 times to generate non-water runestone. So remember that every time you explode runes, you actually deal damage to the enemy as well. And that disregards enchanted shield. Right, so that's good. So for 1 round, you can see here, upon fusion, you can see that the stats is going to be pretty massive. Right, so from here, you can see if it launched 6 extra fire attack as much as 50 instead of 30 now, this will actually deal a lot of damage. More compared to Riza alone. Right, so I believe that this Hawkeye EX is going to be very useful when you're going to take down like the final boss of the ultimate stage in the future. Right, a lot of extra damage right there. Right, so Riza not very useful on her own, and upon combination you can see that this is a much better active skill, right, after fusion. So last but not least, let's talk about the Roy and Riza team skill. Right, so upon fusion there is a slight change in the team skill. Let's take a look. So fire runes possess effect of heart. So instead of 50% now, it's a full effect now. So drop rate of fire increased to 25. There's no change right there. So by dissolving all fire, explode water runes after completion of moving runes, there's no difference right there. So another difference is when boss burning effect is in play, leader skill times 4 instead of times 3. So there's a big jump there, and also reduce damage burning to 1. Right, so you can see that here is also another team that ignores burning, and that's going to be very fantastic because you foresee that a lot of enemies are going to have burning skills in this patch. Right, so definitely draw Roy, Mustang, as well as Riza for this upcoming collab. Right, so usually I will always advise players to draw collab because you never know when are they going to come back, and most of the time they don't. Right, other than Hunter x Hunter, which came back as a surprise. Right, so definitely draw Roy. So it's not clear whether this guy here is the 1% card or the 4.5% card. Right, if this guy is 4.5%, then I can't imagine what the 1% card is going to be like. Right, so anyways, this is going to be card review for Roy and Riza gameplay. Right, so hope you guys enjoy it, and then I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.